son, our middle son, he's highly sensitive. And we went to a church, which was big lights, camera, action church. And he called it the scary church when he was 2 or 3. It was scary. We'd come up and he'd be holding so tight, you know, and not want to go to anyone. And well, I'm thinking, is he seeing demons or what? Well, I know now that just the whole environment was an assault on his senses. And the other 2 kids were fine, but for him it was like, oh, and he couldn't manage, he couldn't self-soothe, he wasn't in control whether he got to leave or not, because that was all up to us. And we moved to this more quiet, more subtle. They didn't turn the lights off. It was just airy and breathy and environmental. And he was like, this is a lot better. And so part of the reason we moved to church was because I didn't want it to be traumatic, right, for my children. But the same could go to, you know, taking your child to a mall or to the kindergarten or wherever that is, if you do that. And when I talk about kids, we have to remember, if you're highly sensitive, you would have been that kid too. Yeah? Does everyone remember times and moments where they were like, that was me. No wonder I hated that. No wonder I didn't do that. So that goes through the does there. They're the common sort of traits there. Again, let me say, this is something we manage. It's not something to fix. If HSPs, we have a greater opportunity to be more bravely authentic, more of ourselves. I think it's always important for us to find other highly sensitive people that we can connect with, because you just get each other. This is a tragedy. A lot of highly sensitive people, if you don't know you're like this, you just feel lonely. You feel misunderstood. I felt terribly misunderstood as a child. You know, is it acceptable for, a 9-year-old boy to watch a kid in the playground get bullied and just stand there and cry because you feel sorry for him? Yeah. Is it acceptable for a highly sensitive kid to, you know, I remember talking with one guy and he remembered as we were praying together and, you know, walking through stuff, he told me a story of how in his class when he was about 11 or 12, this boy in his class got the news, and they were a bit stupid about this, but they just had told this kid, you know, hey, you know, can we see Jonathan, and just stood him at the door, and everyone could hear, but because the police had come with the principal and said, look, I'm sorry, Jonathan, but your father's just been killed in a car accident. And the whole class could hear, and this boy just remembered the trauma that he felt. He wasn't the boy, but he just felt for his friend and started to cry, and then people were like, what are you crying for? It's not you. And so he was told off for his own empathy. Just, can anyone relate? Like, it's not you, but we just have trouble separating who we are from the other person. But if we can embrace that and be bravely authentic and be brave in what we do, then, you know, the world's going to be a better place. So find other HSPs, destroy any idols of strength. I put a little thing up on Facebook a couple of days ago. Really, in our culture, strength, overcoming and being strong and brave and courageous and all that sort of stuff is really, it's elevated to a place really of idolatry. We've made an idol and of our own strengths. And you know what? This is an ancient trait. You know, you think of an old, take an American Indian tribe, and let's say they're really fast runners. Well, of course, the thing on top of their totem pole is going to be a cheetah or something that runs fast, okay? So we always idolize our strengths, okay? That's generally the way it works. But don't make an idol of strength in your own life, because it tends to have us trapped into not being able to be authentic. Not to say that we are weak, but we have to understand that there's nothing wrong with being gentle. There's nothing wrong with being highly empathetic. There's nothing wrong with being frail. There's nothing wrong with, you know, saying, I know you can work 5 days a week and I know you can do this and that and the other, but I can't. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of the fact that my limitation and my bandwidth isn't as wide as all yours. but it's down here. And so it's important for us to be able to just be able to destroy and then confront things that are actual idols. We usually don't see people as they are, we see them as we are. And so people often look at us through the lens of their own life experience, say, why aren't you like me? And so the answer is because I'm like me. It's important for us to be kind to ourselves, love ourselves, treat ourselves well, keep good boundaries, okay, even if this means you're going to disappoint and let people down. And we then need to learn to mitigate, knowing somebody might be upset and let down and disappointment that we're not spending time with them. And we then need to be okay with the emotion that we're feeling in them and not think, oh, I know it's sad, so I'll just go and spend another 3 hours listening to your story, even though I'm already frazzled. You just have to put up good, strong boundaries. Doesn't mean you put up a wall and block everyone else out, but the person that you and I are in charge of is ourselves to govern. It's important to honor our body, understand the signals that our bodies are giving us, choose foods, things that nurture us. And from a Christian perspective, and this is something that we have to remind ourselves to do, is to take this gift that we have and not feel that we have to control it, but to release the control of that gift back to God as well. And so as creative, conscientious type people, you know, those are some things we have to do, because we do feel deeply, we are emotionally reactive, we do need time to process, we do pick up on different stimulation, we do notice subtleties, things in the environment. Embarrassingly, you know, if we've gone with friends and, you know, I'll say, hey, have you had a haircut? And she's like, yeah, thanks for noticing, David. Steve didn't notice for a whole week and you've just noticed. See, Steve, David knows. And I'm like, well, I notice these things around people. I'm not hitting on your wife. I'm just saying you had a haircut, right? It's just sort of, but because you notice these things, yeah. What's lovely is a lot of HSPs are because we're conscientious, HSP kids have, you know, generally good manners. We want to be polite. We want to be kind to the world. We want to, you know, move against any kind of cruelty or violence. But again, have a space that you have your own, have a space you call your own, and put things in place that help you manage and govern this gift. So I'm done with talking. I would love just in the next time, thoughts, comments, questions, anything that you have, anything else you'd like to know about in maybe some other things, other videos. We want to put some websites, some webinars, some courses and things together as well. So I may not be able to answer them here, but as a HSP community, you know, what are the challenges that you have and so on. So if you have something, do please give us a wave. I want to give you permission to butt in and say something. If you give me a wave, I can unmute you. Lynn, okay, here we go. Go ahead.
Okay, something that you said helped me a lot, because I've gone through some really difficult things the last 9 months, and I had people who keep telling me, you've got to fight spiritual warfare, get your weapons up, and it would make me just cringe. I mean, I would get hysterical and cry, and then they made me feel like I was a bad person. And it took me a long time to realize that maybe that's not what God was asking me to do. And I actually withdrew, you know, from people and just got quiet, because I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because I felt like I was a bad Christian, because the thought of fighting was just, but it was when I got quiet before God that my answer came. And a mature, godly woman said to me, Lynn, just be quiet. Just stop fighting. Just stop. And that's what I finally did.
Yeah, wow.
So when you mentioned that, because I realized when in the Old Testament, when the armies fought, the choir went before the soldiers. And sometimes didn't have to really use weapons at all. So, I mean, it's a battle for me, because I'm thinking I must be a bad Christian, God, because I don't want to go out there and fight. I mean, it's not that I want to serve God, but I mean, it's just, is that part of being HSP?
I think so, because we hate violence of any type, and so we generally, we'll work towards non-violence. And I do this online mentoring course on integrated inner healing, and one of the topics in this is on spiritual warfare, and so we have one starting October. You can, if any of you are interested, you can pre-register. If you go to my website, David Tenson, you can pre-register. But one of the topics in there is on spiritual warfare, and now I do this as a living. Okay, we're in inner healing and deliverance in prayer ministry, and I have found the best approach is a non-violent approach. We don't minister to demons, we minister to people. We keep our eyes on Jesus. We want to be part of the Prince of Peace. And there are some very strong warnings in the Bible around taking the battle to the enemy and taking on the enemy. Okay, and so that often has created big shows and, very driven. We're going to take him on, we're going to put the armor on, we're going to take the sword of the Spirit, we're going to bind the devil, and we're going to do that. None of that is actually biblical. You don't see it in Jesus' ministry as well. In Jude, in Zechariah, in some other scriptures, there is a simple term that I use in any kind of, I don't even like to call it deliverance, although that's what it is, but it has these things, basically setting people's hearts free from demonic or attachment to evil, and that can be, that's a whole other subject, but we just simply say, the Lord rebuke you. Because it's the Lord that does the judging. It's the Lord that has the power. It's the Lord's authority. And, in Luke 10, when the disciples come back after casting out demons and fixing things, Jesus is like, don't even celebrate the casting out of things. Celebrate the fact that your name's in the Lamb's book of life, and that order and peace are coming into homes. And so there's a guy by the name of Brad Jerzak, who's an interesting theologian around nonviolent atonement, all sorts of stuff. And he said he spent years in deliverance in the Vineyard movement, and people come out the front and he'd shout and he'd tell me your name and get out. Well, he said the light went on when his little son came up to him after he'd gone to something far more effective in inner healing and got to the root of the problem instead of dealing with the cause. And he said, I remember my son came up to me and said, Daddy, I'm so glad you don't shout at people anymore. You were so scary to watch at church. And it is violent. And so it's very HSP, but I think it's actually really clever and unnecessary. It's a good show, and you can tell other people who are driven to want to go and do that. It's like, I'm going to wake up and do 100 push-ups every day and tell everybody about it. Well, that's fine, but I don't need to do 100 push-ups. Like, my job doesn't need me to do. I guess does that make sense? So yeah, the warfare, it's gentle, it's creative, and the Lord does the job, and we just co-labor with him in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. That's a really good thing. So you don't shy away from dealing with the enemy and evil. You just employ better strategies that are HSP friendly. All right.
Yeah,
anyone else? Go on, Lynn.
That's what I noticed in the book of Acts, because I was just trying to find answers, and I noticed a whole lot more prayer before something happened, and it wasn't them making it happen. It was them praying and the Holy Spirit guiding them to meet this person, talk to that person, confront. But that's when I realized I was doing the right thing, which was not to think I had to go out there and attack everything that was coming at me. Sometimes you have to just step back and pray and let God guide you or take care of it for you.
Yeah. There's a book by a guy called John Paul Jackson called Needless Casualties of War. There's a few other books in that sort of arena. And there, includes some tragic stories of people that went on in intercession, prayer, or deliverance, and took on things that they didn't have personal authority, jurisdiction, or wisdom to take on. And one of the girls in the story died, and it's just very real. I don't muck around with it, and I cringe when I see people go after it. My HSP-ism cringes even more because I'm like, stop doing that. But we like the show. I just don't like the show that,
I don't like
you know, with that. So. All right, cool. Any other thoughts, questions? Give us a wave if you do. I'll unmute you. Somebody said conflict is difficult for HSPs. I notice if I get really overwhelmed, it affects my physical health. I have to get away, stay away, spend time in peace and presence in order to feel better. Absolutely. You should feel no shame in getting away and doing that, because conflict is a real challenge. Conflict and confrontation for HSPs is a challenge, because we're so conscientious. We're aware that person's angry, and because we're empathetic, we feel their anger already. And you're thinking, if I push against that and that anger increases, I'm going to be even more uncomfortable. So we'll often be complicit, or we sacrifice ourselves in order to appease that person. It's a challenge for HSPs to navigate that space. What we often want to do is do whatever it takes to fix the problem, so that that person's emotional state that's caused, you know, is in overwhelm, anger, or in a negative zone for us. We want to fix that, because we don't want them to be sad, angry, or depressed, because if they're sad, angry, or depressed, we are sad and angry and depressed. Yeah, but that's not ours. Hello, that is not your sadness, not your anger, not your depression. And so this is where I've found, we don't have time to get into it, but things like certain types of prayer, certain types of mindset, practicing certain things allows me to check in, know what's mine, know what's theirs, and say, hey, that anger, sadness, and depression you're feeling is yours. It's not mine. It's not my responsibility. And if I choose not to feel that, but still connect with the person, but not with the feeling, okay, then I'm going to be able to make some more rational feelings, because most often HSPs are driven to fix people with an underlying agenda of, if you feel better, I'll feel better. And so we can fall into narcissistic or codependent relationships quicker than other personality or traits than non-HSPs. Yeah. Go ahead, Debbie.
Oh, I just asked a question. How do you disconnect from the other person's emotions? Yeah,
that's a good question. So there are a couple of things that I do. One of those is I do a check-in. I'm going to see if I can get it up on here. So one of the first things I do is I check in with myself at the beginning of the day, or a time, or a session with somebody. And so that means that, let me just have a look here. See if I can get this going. All right, you should be able to, you can obviously see that, guys. So one of the things I do is a check-in, okay? And I'll do this at the start of a day. I'll do this before I meet with somebody, is just increase in self-awareness. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is me. How am I doing today? Well, if I'm doing today, if I'm honest, I'm a bit tired. Okay, I'm going to own that. Should have gone to bed earlier, whatever the case is. Second thing I might say is emotionally, if I'm going to give myself on a scale of 10 being great, 1 being, you know, in a hole. Actually, I'm at an 8 today. I'm at a pretty good space. Okay, so I check in with my body. I check in just with my emotions, because for us, what we want to be regulating is our energy. Forget time scheduling. We got to schedule our energy, because that's our most important resource, and that's what you got to watch. So for me, I'm tired. My emotions at about an 8, and am I feeling frazzled? No, I'm feeling good. How's my spirit? Yeah, good. I'm feeling good with God. I'm feeling good with myself and my environment and where I am here. So I'd give myself as good. So that's me and my stuff. So I check in. So I know that's what I look like at the start of the time. And so this little exercise for me allows me to go, all that's mine. So if we talk about the other now here, they might be sad. They might be, well, no, let's where I'm tired, my body's tired. They might be very excited. And this doesn't mean that it's a good thing, but there's a high energy. There's an intensity around the actions in their body. On emotions, if you want to put a hole at 1 and walking on the hills of sunshine with rainbows and lollipops at a 10, then I think looks like they're at about a 4, because I can see they're quite sad and not feeling well. And then I don't know how their spiritual life is, but I'm going to guess that's where the place they're in. So I have to have this line of demarcation and say everything on this side of the fence, this is all mine. Yeah. Because what people will want to do is they will want to borrow some of your 8, okay, to increase their 4. Yeah. And so in order to do that, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And so this is where good things like boundaries come in. Understanding what's yours and what's not. And so the simple thing of check-in is like, I'm here. What I might do is allow you for a few minutes to plug in and draw a little. I can drop to a 7 if you want to get to a 5, but all you're getting is 1 point, because if I drop to 6, I can't afford to go on for the rest of the day. Does that make sense? So that's one thing that I'll do. That's just a practical mental note strategy. There's other things we'll do in prayer. I'll always pray for the kiss of God, which is the armor of heaven. That's another topic. I will, Carol Brown, in the interview that I did with her, talked about putting on a onesie. Does everyone know what a onesie is? She says, this is my spiritual onesie. It's like a onesie is like, what's that? It's like a one-piece jumpsuit, but that's her thing. She says, I put on a onesie. And what she means is I imagine myself getting into this costume, but it's made of the light and the love of God. And that becomes my barrier between myself and either the evil the other person's carrying, any demonic attachments they have that tend to leak onto us or whatever. And so that's one of the strategies that she uses. I have another friend who, if you can, let me switch back here. If you can imagine you are like, I call this lady here, I call her Betty the burden bearer. Okay. This is Betty. She's quite happy, but she just picks up a lot of stuff. Yeah, she just picks up a lot of stuff in her environment. Say hi to everybody. So that's what she's like. But what people have to realize that the spirit, okay, New Age call this their aura, but their spirit actually, has a field, has a sphere. The Bible talks about dominions and spheres that we have. And so the way that my friends talked about it is, she said, I imagined that I had this antenna on my head, okay, and it would have this field here that would pick up all sorts of different things in her environment. It could be the house next door. It could be other people in her family. Okay. It could be things at her work environment. It could be, her care and concern for the world and the different planets and what was going on. And so all these things are there. She said, I couldn't go for a walk, David, without like picking up stuff in what was going on in people's homes. So she used to use this simple exercise. She would do it physically. She would say, Lord, I want to go for a walk. I don't want to feel anything or pick something up. So I'm just going to put my antennas down. And so she said it took a while. I would just go for a walk. Before I walked out the door, I went, antennas down, which means I don't want to pick up any of this stuff anymore. And they were simple exercises, but they helped something in the natural to steer something in the spiritual. We took the realm of mastery and brought it into the mystery, first in the natural and then the spiritual. And she was able to govern her spirit in that dominion. And so those are a couple of things you can do. There, there's more advanced things around that, but there's a couple of things there. Any last comments? Somebody said, is that why we tend to be fixers? How do you disconnect from their emotions? Yeah, sort of answer that. We do tend to be fixers, and if a gifting is redeemed and good and brought to God and handed over and you can manage it, you're a great healer. So many HSPs end up in healing roles. Elaine, Aaron, not a Christian, but said Jesus probably would have been HSP, Gandhi HSP, Buddha was a HSP. I mean, these people are deeply aware about the state of the world, just highly sensitive people, Any other, one more thought or question or comment? Anything else you'd like to learn about or in maybe further things? Sydney, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it was very liberating when you said we don't need to be fixed, but something needs to be done so that we can manage, because we do have calls, we do have destinies, we do have gifts, we have family, we have life. That is definitely overwhelming. And I've listened to a lot of your stuff, and it has helped so much not feel like it's the defect of me. It is a gift, not fully redeemed, obviously. And I just want it redeemed. I just don't want to wake up pummeled every morning.
Yeah.
Because we're like this for a purpose, and I know it's beautiful. I just can screw it up so good.
Yeah, can anyone relate? We feel like we've stuffed it up and we've overcooked the chook, so to speak. We've just, and life can be overwhelming, and so you're not alone, Sydney. That's a common thing. The challenge is we are so hard on ourselves. Like, we expect a lot from ourselves because we're deeply aware of ourselves and our flaws and what's going on. And so criticism, we hate criticism, right? Like, to discipline my highly sensitive child compared to the other one, I just have to give him the look and he's done. Like, I don't even say anything. The punishment is he knows he's done wrong. Like, please don't criticize me. And we just live, that hurts, right? Can anyone relate?
Yeah.
So we need to give ourselves a bit of a break too. Be a little non-HSP about yourself. And sometimes I think to myself, what would a non-HSP do now? Because that's going to be okay with 80% of the population. And is it really that bad? And so, that's good. We do have calls to life, destiny, and we want all this stuff redeemed. So, yeah.
That's just what I want to learn. I would say it may be too much of a focus for me since I over-focus on those things. But I'm passionate too in my heart about being good with me and sharing the good, and even just letting somebody else know it's just a trait. It's not a flaw.
Exactly.
That's so huge, just to know I'm not a goof, and I know I'm goofy, but I'm not a goof. and to let
Yeah.
other people know that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I
Good.
want to learn. I really want to learn it really bad, really fast. No.
Good. I'm glad you're hungry. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
but-
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sydney. Anyone else before we go? Because I'm going to call the hour up. Any last pressing? Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for being part of this and for asking your questions and being part of it. If it was helpful, please just let me know. Put it in the Facebook group or something like that. There's a couple of, as I mentioned before, when I was answering Lynn's question, we have a an introduction to integrated inner healing course that goes over 6 weeks, starts in October. It's $199 US, and we just talk about different aspects to inner healing. I interview some brilliant people in that space. We catch up like this every week. We can be part of a live Zoom with myself, Natalie, and some guests. And that goes for 6 weeks, starts in October. So the spots are limited. You can pre-enroll for that if you want to. I've also got another course, as some of you may have done, called the 4D Blessing. And so that's a great course as well. And I've got a special running on that as well at a discount. Just let me know and I can send you the link to that as well if you want to do that course as well. But our Soaking Prayers are available still on our site and other information. So thanks for being part of it. And if you do have any thoughts, comments or feedback, other things you'd like answered in other webinars or courses, then please let me know. That would be invaluable to you because we want to be able to serve this community as best possible. All right. Bless you heaps, everyone. We'll see you later. Bye.